Hey guys, Vick here, back with another video. Today we are going to rebuild the vRBA deck on the Rafale. If you're in a rush and you just want to know whether you should buy the rebuildable head or not, I would say no. In my personal opinion, I would say no. I would say go and get an RTA instead. If you want to find out why, stick around. If you want to laugh at the worst rebuild job ever, stick around. We're going to go down low. I'm going to fiddle like mad with this RBA head, and then we're going to come back up top and we'll talk about why for me it's a bit of a fail. Me personally as a vaping builder, and in general as a device, I think it fails. We'll go down low and you'll see. See you in a sec. Okay guys, here we are with the Rafale vRBA base. Let's just get cracking and we'll talk about my frustrations with this as we go. There is our target. That's the coil that they have made for this. We're going to use that as a bit of a template. We've got a manual there. It's got some interesting stuff in. It comes with a little bit of Japanese cotton, which is never a bad thing. This is our winding tool, and this clips on at the end, and we will need this Allen key very much. Okay, so we'll just put some stuff to one side. Okay, so first job is to make a coil. I've got some 22 gauge and we're going to stick it in here. We're going to bob it in this little hole in the tool here. We're actually wrapping it around this side, not this big side. I saw a video where someone was trying to wrap it around that side. It's quite good. Okay, so we're going to hold it down there. It's very important that you use this hole tool. It's not so important that you use the screw, but you certainly can, and you're certainly supposed to, but I haven't been. We're going to wrap now. When we're wrapping here, we're very worried about how much vertical is required on this. So what we're going to do is space it a bit so we don't need as many wraps, and we're going to leave it about there. Leave it about there. Got way too much canthal here. Let me fix that. Okay, so we've got a coil. It's very springy. If you have a blowtorch, now's a good time to use one. This creates the vertical here that goes down into the bottom of the RBA base. On this other side, what we've got, we need to also make a little bit of a vertical, because ultimately this is going to touch the head of the RBA base. So what we're going to do is we're going to just try and bend a little bit up. The neatness of this top one is not as important as the bottom. The bottom needs to be perfectly straight, and that's why they've given it you on the tool. This lead needs to be perfectly straight so your coil sits perfectly straight, but this other one, it can bend up like that. It's not too much of a deal. So there's our coil. Okay, so what we do, we'll just take a bit off the bottom here. Okay, so now what we do is we get our RBA head and we bob it in this hole. Oh no, we don't. What am I talking about? We need to wrap some cotton. Okay, so this bit is the really important bit, guys. You need to eyeball a very precise, in fact I'm going to use the straight edge, a very precise amount of cotton. If you use too much or too little, it's just not going to be good for you or for anyone. So we're going to cut a strip to about that. We're going to eyeball it to the best we can, and don't be afraid of cutting it, wrapping it, unwrapping it, cutting it a bit more. It really is worth going back a step at this point rather than wicking it, building it, everything, and then deciding it doesn't work. So we see the coil that we made versus the coil that they made. Ours is Canthal, but you can see a resemblance. Okay, so what we do now, and this bit is really hard, it's really tricky, but it's sort of unavoidable with these vertical builds. This is just a part of the step, so we're wrapping it, trying to keep it as tight as possible. It's a tiny bit too wide. Wrapping it showed that, so we're just going to try and take a slither, just a slither off this, and this is just part of it, guys. This is just part of the game with this one. It's just really important that you get it right with the amount of cotton. And I want this to actually work good, you know, not just pretend it works good on camera. I want to literally show you it working good. But we've now wrapped it round, and we're now fairly happy with this. What we'll find out shortly is if we've wrapped too much round or not. That's what we're about to find out. The winding tool isn't an installation tool. Just going to try and tidy this up a bit at the bottom. Obviously it's very important that you keep that hole there. Because obviously that's your airflow, so without that you've got no airflow. So we're putting it in. We're going to force it in here. Just going to get my coil master winding thing just to sort of help me guide it down. Cotton everywhere, we'll try and deal with that in a second. We'll pull it back out again and see how it's got slightly unwrapped at the bottom. And if you're like me, if you're a bit fat fingered in like this respect, then this is just an inevitable part of the process. Okay, so it's sat in there a bit nicer now. So it went through that hole in the bottom there. We've got a grub screw, a corresponding grub screw here that we used to tighten it down. Your next job is to make sure we're just gonna try and tie this a bit and poke it a bit. I'll have another go at that in a sec, but your next job is to make sure that this lead touches the barrel at some point. What you'll end up with if you're not careful is too restrictive airflow. Okay, so we've got that. What we're hoping to do, give it a big push, give it a big extra push there. Now what we want to do is get it so this lead clips in using this clip. A bit easier said than done. It takes a bit of force there, but you can see that lead's now pushing tight against there. Final tidy up of this. It's okay, that's okay now. When it gets juicy we might have another play as well, another fiddle. But that's what it is, you know, it's worth that extra time just fiddling about with it. And there's your head all built up, and you can see cotton in all the right places. All that's left to do, guys, is juice it up, have another little fiddle with it, and stick it in your clearomizer. Don't forget to prime it, obviously. Yeah, we'll stick it in, we'll go up top, we'll talk about it. Alright guys, bit of business to get out of the way at the top. When I put it on the ohm reader, I hadn't screwed the head in properly. The actual reading is, I don't know if you can see it actually, but 1.1 ohm. And this is the problem with this RBA head. that was 24 gauge Canthal. Sorry, yeah, 24 gauge Canthal. Was it like 12 wraps, something like that, around a massive head, 4.5 mil, something like that head. Now that comes out at 1 ohm, and the head, and it states in the instructions, and it's very clear on it, it wants you to use all of that rebuild stack. It needs to be a certain length for it to perform well. So what you've got going on is a 1 ohm coil in a tank designed to chuck tits. So your options are really, you could space out the coils more, so you need less wraps. But if you do that, you're not going to get the intense flavour and heat that you're looking for, in my opinion. You could go down lower gauge, so you could go down to 22 gauge to lower the resistance, but you're going to need quite a lot of ramp up to get what you want out of that, to be honest. And then your other options beyond that is a series coil, like a parallel coil, where you have 2 strands, fold your canthal over, 2 strands, and you have 2 strands going round, like you might do in a dripper or something, if you're doing a parallel build. If you do that, you might be onto a winner, but that will be so fiddly and hard to do. That's the thing, you see, because this clearomizer, if you look at the actual heads, that's how they're done. They're done in the parallel style. And so when you turn it into a single normal coil in the RBA, it doesn't work, because it's designed originally for the clearomizer heads to be in like a series parallel, so that 2 wires going round. That's how it's done in the head, and that's how they get the resistance down on their heads. So if you want to go crazy, if you're a mad skilled builder and you want to do a parallel coil in here, then go for it, and you might get good results. But if you're like me with the RBA head, you just want to do a sort of semi-natural coil, semi-normal coil in here, then you're struggling. I mean, look at this. I've got so it's come out at 1 ohms, which means I'm going to get to 70 watts. I need 9 volts. This is at 9 volts. It's like a series tank right now. It's not going to last 2 minutes, Your battery isn't going to last 2 minutes like this. I'll turn it down a bit. It's a bit crazy, 9 volts, but just making a point, really. So 50 watts is 7.6. And it's just, unless you're prepared, in my opinion, unless you're prepared to do a parallel coil in here, then I just don't think it works, to be honest. Because it's just not set up to do a mouth to lung. Oh, it's a 1 ohm coil, you could do a mouth to lung vape. But you don't forget, you've got it really wide in there, because you've built it around that base. You've got it really wide, so the whole tank is set up for big lung hits. So if to turn it into a mouth to lung, you're fighting against it. You don't really use 24 gauge 4.5 mil wide coils to do a mouth to lung vape. So for me, it's a bit flawed. I mean, I'm speaking here as a frustrated, mediocre builder, and if you're a wicked builder, then maybe it's going to be good for you. But I can do such a nice build on an RTA that takes this apart, and this does not perform half as well as the stock coils. So stick with the stock coils. It's a really good clearomizer, this, but when converted into an RBA RTA, for me, it just doesn't work, because you need so much width and length on those coils that it just doesn't really fit into what you actually wanting to do. That's just my opinion. That's just my take. Sorry about the up close section. It's just really fiddly wrapping that cotton around neatly on camera and then shoving it in neatly. It's really tricky. I actually pulled it back out after and re-wicked it. So yeah, so there we go. I've been Vick. Another build fail video. I'll see you again soon.